there. So, amidst the Omicron scare, the debate over boosters continue to boost or not to boost. Now, the government here feels that there isn't simply enough evidence to say that boosters will be helpful. Joining me is Dr. Shaumadeep Bhume. He's an international public health expert. And my first question to you, Doctor, really would be, is it time for India to start using booster shots?
Yeah, thank you for having me on your show. And I think that's something the entire world is thinking about and debating on. But it's quite a complicated question. First of all, we don't know enough about Omicron, which is the new variant, and every day we are learning new things. And to understand that and to make sense of the new scientific data is challenging. And what the decisions being made now are mainly in terms of broader understanding of how vaccines work, how viruses work, and broader public health principles. I think one key challenge and difference between a country like India and other countries which have already started giving boosters is the stage in which our vaccination is. As of today, when we speak of, we are around 38% fully vaccinated, and around 60% who have received one dose of vaccine. The priority at this moment should be to give doses to people who have just received one dose, as well as try to reach as much as possible in higher numbers to people who have received none of the two doses. I think these are the top two priorities, because unless we attain very high levels, it's difficult, which is very different from countries like UK, which are giving booster doses. They have fully vaccinated for about 70% of the population.
So you're suggesting that the priority should be that everybody first gets fully immunized, meaning they get both their doses, and then the government should think of a third or a booster dose. Is that right?
Yes, and again, this also needs to factor in how much vaccine supply is available. But the priority definitely is people who have not got any of the doses, then getting people who have got the one dose but not got the second dose. I think those two are the top priority, because unless we get that high percentage of people with vaccine, from a public health point of view, we will still be having a lot of cases.
So even the World Health Organization has a view as far as boosters are concerned. First, the World Health Organization had said that there's very limited data, but then the SAGE committee, which is the technical advisory group of the World Health Organization, sat deliberated on third and booster doses. What they really said was that perhaps for immunocompromised individuals and people who received inactivated vaccines, there are three vaccines in the world that are inactivated COVID 19 vaccines. One is Covaxin in India, and two Chinese vaccines. So, in that context, some population in India does qualify then for a booster dose. In fact, Dr. Tedros from the World Health Organization said that, don't get me wrong, I'm not against booster doses. What I'm against is vaccine inequality. So do you see that in India also, and going by what the World Health Organization is also largely saying, that at least for immunocompromised people, say such as people with HIV, or people who have cancer, or people who undergone some sort of organ transplant, at least should those people qualify for a third or additional dose?
Yes, I think this is an additional layer of complexity that adds to it. There are two layers of this again. One is, of course, I would just add one more group to it, is also the high risk healthcare workers and the other frontline workers, who will, many of whom will receive in 1 month's time, be 1 year away from the first dose they would have received, and probably in few months also the second dose. So for both these groups of people, it is essential to start thinking about booster doses. And again, it really has to take into account the supply scenario of the vaccine. And yes, from what we know as of now, again, very little we know because we don't have trials on booster doses done in India or in a lot of other places also. But from what we know, for people who have taken Covaxin, they the government should start considering the evidence that is available to give booster shots to these these people who are immunocompromised or are healthcare workers. But again, adding to that, we have to realize who are the people who have still not got a single dose of a vaccine, and these are people for communities and who are from backward communities. These are minorities, these are people who live in hard to difficult reach areas, who are often away from our formal health systems. To gain
Yeah.
their trust and get them vaccinated is important, because if you have 30 or 40% of the people still getting being totally unprotected, it's still a major challenge for the health system, because they will come to the hospitals and health facilities if they come sick.
So
And
what,
we
what
don't.
you're essentially trying to say is that on one hand, if we start giving a third dose to a particular population, but on one hand, if there are still people who've not even received their first dose, or people who've not got their second dose despite its due, so that sort of an imbalance doesn't really work in terms of the public health infrastructure.
Yes, I think this is a balance which we always have to manage in public health. As they say, public health is kind of an art as well as a science. So balancing the technicalities also needs for us to balancing these issues, and in taking into account what is the supply scenario for it available. And also we probably also need to start thinking about adding more vaccines and approving them to the kitty, because as of now mRNA vaccines are not available. So we really need to start thinking about it. And I would just add one more thing to this is, I think we really need to have more free vaccination slots available to be able to wrap up the remaining people who have not got one dose, and also do more door to door and outreach activities in every state. Like it's being done, but intensify it so that we can really go to everyone and start really move on to the booster dose phase 2, because it's clear we have to do boosters now or at some point of time.
To be fair to the government is in fact reaching out to people, really knocking their doors and asking them if they've taken their second dose or even the first dose for that matter. But there's some sort of lethargy also. A lot of people who have not taken their second dose, there is availability, but it's just that some people perhaps think that COVID is gone, and this sentiment we hear a lot on the ground. But having said that, while you say, Dr. Shamadeep, that there has to be a balance which needs to be maintained, but what about those who've been responsible, taken their first dose in time, and like our healthcare workers and our frontline workers, it's going to be a year, like you mentioned. Now, according to the chief of ICMR, he said that the antibodies, the immunities that you derive from getting vaccinated, they last for about 9 months. But it's going to be a year now for our healthcare and our frontline workers, and they are still out there. They're still in the hospitals helping us. So, do you think it's about time that the government thinks about vaccinating them with a booster or a third dose?
Yes, as I mentioned, it's about time we start thinking about it, and we definitely have to do it at some point of time in the near future. But we have our own priorities also. But and I think it's one, like the way we see it from a public health angle is we see barriers as demand side, which are people not wanting to take vaccines, but there are also supply side barriers. So for addressing the demand side barriers, just knocking on the door and asking people is really good. That's the step one. But we also need to do more health promotion and campaigns, which are kind of like behavioral change campaigns, which we have seen very successfully done for polio and a lot of other
Yeah.
vaccines. So we really have to have more micro plans to the specific issues and the problems which are affecting people who are not doing that. But also we need to get our the lethargy and the supply side constraints fixed, because we have to understand that there has actually been no extra human resources, a lot of extra human resources who are just doing the vaccine. uh, and it's kind of an additional work to what everything else an ASHA worker is doing. So to be able to take a more systems and a more sustainable manner, because we know that giving 100 crore vaccinations every year, not 100 crore actually, 100 crore into two, because that's our population, is a huge task. It's almost like having a double the health system. So we really need to add capacity, regularize ASHA health workers, address the concerns they have. It's one thing people doing giving a fight in a very intense short phase, and it's a very different thing when it's a long battle of implementation you have to do for years. And there are some systems level supply side barriers in the health system that really need to be fixed, so that health workers are more motivated and work the extra mile for us to get keep our country protected, especially the ASHA workers. Yeah.
That definitely will be essential. I agree with you there. Now, the government also says that there isn't enough evidence to suggest that a third dose or a booster dose can protect you from the new Omicron variant, which is true. There isn't enough data. There are cases in Israel as well as in the US, people who've taken their booster shot, people who've taken their third shot, but still got Omicron. But should Omicron really be a factor when we're thinking of a booster dose? Because the virus will keep mutating.
Yes, I think it's true that there is not enough evidence, and this is a learning experience. As we get more evidence, we will do that. But at the same time, from what we little we know already, and also in alignment with the larger principles of virology, immunity, and public health, we know that having two vaccinations doses will really keep people protected. And again, topping it up with boosters is expected to keep people protected more. That is what science expects us. The magnitude might be different, the timing and everything else we have to figure out it. But it is expected that things will turn that way in terms of the broader principles of science in these disciplines. So we have to think about the supply side issues of the various other issues. And I think the NTAGI and the NEGVAC are really considering all those. And they should so far there has been good policies put in place from time to time in terms of the immunization, but there are systems level challenges broader which needs to be considered. And but it's definitely time to think about booster doses because we expect
Okay,
that.
so on that note, the doctor there is saying that it's about time that India starts thinking about a booster or a third dose, at least for healthcare frontline workers as well as those who are immunocompromised. But also, like Dr. Shamadhi Bhumik pointed out, that public health is not just about science, it's also about art. So, all those people who've still not taken their second dose, or people who've not taken their first dose even, the request from CNN News 18 really is go take that dose. It's really, really important. Thank you so much, Dr. Shamadev Bhumik, for joining us. And thanks our viewers for watching. Bye bye.
Thank you.